Hello, welcome to Day Talks Podcast. How's everyone doing tonight? Tonight we have a very special guest, Miss Keandra Jenkins. She will be helping us and informing us all about child abuse awareness and prevention. Since the month of April is all about child abuse prevention, and there are a lot of things that we may not know because we're not in the field. I know before I got in the field, I didn't know anything about the child abuse laws. I didn't know anything about, the statutes in the state of Florida. So this is something that I feel people need to know. So I am your host, Shaquana Cotwell, and here at Bay Talk, we break toxic cycles, heal childhood trauma, and build healthy relationships. Like I said, today we have a very special guest. So Keandra, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keandra Jenkins.
And tell them a little about yourself, Miss Keandra.
Oh, okay. So I've been in the child welfare industry for this year makes 9 years. I have a master's degree in criminology. I graduated from the prestigious Florida A&M University. And correct, yes, Rattlers. But so I've been in the child welfare for 9 years now. I've done many aspects of it. I've traveled out of my county, went to other counties to help them out with their cases. I'm currently a supervisor now, so I'm not more so in the field, but I still see the cases. I still see the pictures. I still deal with the families and things like that.
Okay, and Miss Keandra, she don't want to toot her own horn, but she also was training the protective investigators in this field as well. So, as you guys know, in order for you to be able to train people, you have to be like an expert in your field. So she is an expert in the field of child welfare, you guys. And when I thought about who I wanted to bring on to talk about this, she was the first person that came to my mind. Not because she's a good sis, but because I know that she's well versed in this area. She's well educated. Like she said, she's been in this field for so many years, and there's just so much information I know she can offer us. So let's get into these questions. Okay. Let's see. So, can you tell everybody what is considered child abuse in the state of Florida?
Okay, so in the state of Florida, there's many things that consider child abuse. We have the things that they're called maltreatments. Some of the maltreatments that are considered here is sexual abuse, domestic violence, physical injury, bizarre punishment. We have environmental hazards. We also have inadequate supervision. Those are just the ones that come to mind that I see on a daily basis, but there's more.
Yeah, like you said, there's so much more. But also, so tell the people, because, when people think about abuse, they automatically think about, child abuse. Everybody know about back in the days,
HRS.
Exactly. Everybody knew about HRS back in the day. Yeah. So, and that's all they really talked about. But sexual abuse seems to be something that's really big right now. Unfortunately, we get so many cases in this field, and something that people need to know about that. And I just want to touch on it a little bit because that's going to be a completely different episode. But when we talk about child abuse, something that people really need to understand that's really important is that children are abused by people that they know.
Correct.
So it has to be people that have access to them. So when you think about child abuse, don't think about strangers. Think about the people that you trust, your family, your friends, people that you trust to put your child in their care. Because that's how you have to think about it. It's not like we're adults where we can go out on our own and, strangers can come and attack us. Children, they're never really going to be alone, depending on their age. Correct. They're always going to be with an adult, with a parent, with somebody that's older than them. So these are the things that you want to look at when you think about child abuse. Always remember that it's someone close to them that will abuse them. So let's touch on that. I don't want to get distracted because, like she said, she's been in this field for so long.
Yes, and
we're both in this field, and we talk about it all the time. We see so much every day. We see so many cases, and the cases seems to be getting worse. We were just saying this earlier. So I want you guys to get everything. So, Miss Keandra, what are some examples of how children are abused?
For example, like you said, sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is very prominent in my area. I work out of the Central Region. Like Shaquana said, basically sexual abuse happens to children when they know the person. It's someone they know because they have that chance to be with them. They're comfortable with them. And with that being said, that's called grooming. They have the time to groom the child to get them used to it, to basically bait them up to basically sexually abuse them. We see it a lot. It's more so the mother's boyfriends or stepdad or like an uncle, like a distant cousin maybe. And then sometimes we have cases where there's child on child, basically when a child is sexually abusing another child. And more so that comes into a learned behavior because the child that's sexually abusing that other child, they learn that from another person who probably sexually abused them, or they see it. So some of the things that we take into consideration when investigating those type of things, we always have law enforcement present because some of that stuff can be criminal. As you guys know, like you can't touch anybody inappropriately, adult or children. So we do have law enforcement. And then another expert we do use in reference to that is the CPT, it's our child protection team. And I know Shaquana could actually elaborate on that more so. But those are typically our experts to help us determine if that child has been actually sexually abused. We go through forensic interviews, we do medical interviews and things like that. Other ways children are abused is physical injury. I mean, that title speaks for itself. The most complaints we get in reference to if we go out to a home and it's a physical injury, the first thing that come out the parent's mouth, oh, well, my dad beat me to pieces when I was little. And then you have to explain to them like, hey, things change, laws change. That's considered child abuse. We like to tell them, we don't tell parents you can beat your child. You can whoop them, you can use a belt, your hands. However, once you leave that mark and that bruise, then that becomes a concern because maybe you were too impulsive and you went too far, and that is considered the abuse. We understand parents discipline their kids. We get a lot of investigations in reference to parents and disciplining their children, like they come home from school, bad grades and things like that. We understand that. However, outside partners kind of don't because they're not into the child welfare industry. So like teachers and things like that, they see the mark and bruise and they just automatically think, okay, the child is getting abused at home, not knowing that the child got in trouble at school. So they went home, the mom basically reprimanded them and gave them a spanking for it. So we get that a lot. The most prominent one, the majority of the one that everybody has, that's a shocker to everyone, is domestic violence. It's actually called household violence threat.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand the dynamics of domestic violence when it comes to child abuse. When you are physically, verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusing your partner, you are actually abusing your child as well. If they are seeing it, if they're in a home, it doesn't matter if you're in a different room. Kids hear things, kids see things. So that plays a big part, especially with the younger ones, because at that time, they're just basically taking in what they're seeing. That's how they learn. So if you're home and you and your partner are getting into a physical altercation, and then you wonder why your kid is going to school, hitting kids and doing this and that, because what they see in their home, they think it's okay. So they go to school and hit these kids. So that's one component of the domestic violence. Another component is we get a lot of cases where now the teens are jumping into the physical altercations, trying to protect their mother. Typical. That's your mom. You're going to want to protect her. You're going to want to fight for her. And that's kind of like a zero tolerance as it comes to the department. Because they're jumping in, fighting the mom's boyfriends or even their own dads about their mom, and they get injured and things like that. So that's a form of abuse, and that is considered household violence threatened child. So when I explain that to people, they be like, how? It's just me and my partner or my significant other. You have to understand, those kids are acting out on what's going on in that home, and that's why they go to school. They're aggressive at school, especially the younger ones, because they're absorbing all that energy and learning all those dynamics and things like that, and taking it to school, and they're acting out on it.
And you know what, to add to that domestic violence, because this one is so big and people don't realize how big domestic violence is. I'm so glad you brought it up, because that one actually slipped my mind too. But in domestic violence cases, it's so important to remember that in that moment, because everybody is so impulsive, you get a lot of cases where Mom is holding baby, dad goes to
Correct.
the house, mom, and punch the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why domestic violence cases are so important, and like she said, the department don't play about these cases. And
No.
families be so shocked because they think it's something between them and their partner. But as long as there are children in the home,
Mm-hmm.
whether they jump in the fight, whether the child get hurt or not, as long as they're inside the home, that is still considered threat and harm. So along the child abuse laws, we actually categorize them. So you have abuse, you have
Mm-hmm.
neglect, and you have threat and harm.
Mm-hmm.
So abuse is something that somebody would intentionally do. So
Mm-hmm.
they meaning that they inflict harm on a child. So when it comes to child abuse, you're thinking of more so like somebody, a parent who actually intentionally and maliciously inflicted harm on a child. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have neglect. This is a parent that is just like what it says, neglectful. So this could be in cases where parents are not providing the child's medical, personal, emotional, and physical needs. So this can be, anything. Maybe they're not providing a good enough shelter for the children. They don't have adequate sleeping arrangements. They don't have adequate food. They're not feeding the children. So neglect, all of those things fall under neglect. And then when it comes to threat and harm, that's where the domestic violence fall under. Or anything that a mother does in the presence of a child. So even if you're pregnant, you can cause threat and harm to your pregnant child. So that's how far domestic violence goes, and that's how serious it is. So I'm so glad, Keandra brought that up. Like I said, I have completely forgot about it. It's like when you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a big one.
Yes,
That's
because everybody is shocked when they were like, "That's yes, it's abuse," and you wonder why your child is aggressive. Think about it. I always tell parents when I used to be out in the field, everything that you have learned growing up starts in your home. So if you're fighting in your home, more than likely your child is probably going to be aggressive, or they're going to be wanting to fight, or they're going to grow up and think that is okay, especially in the females. They're going to see their mom probably getting abused by their boyfriend, significant other, and the mom stays, and they think that's okay. So sometimes that's hereditary. They seen their mom do it. It's okay. I'm going to stay as well. So you have to understand that's a big part within the department as far as domestic violence, because a lot of people really don't understand it. Another one, when you said neglect, we also deal with medical neglect. We have parents who have younger children who, more so when it comes to medical neglect, they're not educated on the medical needs of the child. So sometimes they don't know how serious diabetes can be in a child. They sit and buy all the sweet stuff, keep it in the house because they have other children who eat the sweet stuff and things like that. But they have to understand they have this one child who may be diagnosed with diabetes, and they could DKA any moment because they're sitting there, their sugar is high and things like that. So we have to take all that into consideration. And another thing that falls under neglect will be more so inadequate supervision. A lot of people, it's more so with the toddlers. They're learning to open doors. They're curious, so they're leaving out of the home. They open the doors, and then that comes into play. Like in Florida, we have pools, we have lakes, we have canals, we have ponds, everything. So you have to take that in consideration too, because that falls under inadequate supervision. We have the parents that sleep at night because they work in the morning, which we understand. But you have to take that extra precaution, get an extra lock, put the alarms on the doors. We help provide those things as well. So I don't want to just think that we just put that on the parent. Sometimes parents are unable to get those type of things, and we can provide that to stop that from happening. So inadequate supervision is more so the younger kids, because they like to get out of the home and things like that. A lot of people don't know there's no law in Florida that says that a certain age that a child can be left home alone. A child can be left home alone as long as they have a phone to contact someone in case of an emergency, and they're mentally able to know I need to contact someone in case of an emergency. You cannot leave a 3-year-old home with a 5-month-old baby. That's not going to work. But like I said, when we go out to the home, that's stuff that we assess. We have to make sure that they have somebody, they know what to do in case of emergency. They know to call 911. They know not to do this, because sometimes when we go out there, they do know, like, we know not to open the door for strangers. We know we can't use the stove and things like that. So it just all depends on how you teach your child. in reference to leaving them home alone. But like I said, a lot of people don't know there's no age limit to where you can leave your child home alone. I'm not saying don't leave your 5-month baby home alone. That's not okay. However, if you do have like teenager kids and things like that, that's okay. But they have to know what to do in case of emergency.
And to piggyback on the inadequate supervision, because that's another big one too, especially now because of COVID. You know, a lot of children are not in school; they're home doing e-learning. The parents are working, you know, so they're home alone with the older siblings. But the older siblings are doing e-learning too, so they can't really watch the younger siblings. So, be mindful that when you think about inadequate supervision, not only is it children being left home alone, but it's also in cases where, because we have inadequate supervision where parents are present and where parents are not present. So you can be present, your child could be in the same home as you, and you still can be inadequately supervising your children.
Correct.
And a perfect example would be, because we get a lot of newborn cases, and if let's say you have a newborn and you have a toddler, and you know kids, they like to play with babies. They think babies are little baby toys. And you know, we have toddlers that will go pick up their newborn siblings and drop them. So although the mom was in the home, she still was inadequately supervising the children.
Correct.
So something, you know, to think about when we think about neglect, because neglect can go so far. Like she said, you can have medical neglect, you can have, you know, inadequate supervising a child neglect. Another one that's really big, and I cannot leave without talking about this, because I just had a case, and we get so many cases, co-sleeping. Okay, we got newborn babies. You cannot co-sleep with these children in the bed with you. You cannot.
We cannot say we
cannot stress this enough.
Yeah.
So many child death cases for parents co-sleeping. And even, you know, when you breastfeed, because we've even gotten cases where parents were breastfeeding and, you know, and babies, they fall asleep with the babies, you know, in their arm. Like, so many things can happen. There's so many scenarios when it comes to, you know, co-sleeping with infants, because, you know, as mothers, you're extremely tired, you know. You think you have the capacity to, you know, stay awake, because that's something a lot of parents say. They're like, oh, you know, I'm a light sleeper. You hear that a lot. I'm pretty sure you heard that one. You know, I'm a light sleeper. You know, as soon as my baby moves, I'm gonna wake up. But I promise you, you know, we get parents that wake up to children that are unresponsive. So would you rather wake up to a child, you know, that you suffocated in your sleep, or would you rather just be safe, take that tired walk to that crib or that bassinet? I always tell parents it's good to get you a bassinet, because you could keep it right on the side of your bed, right next to your head, you know, especially if you're a new mom, you know, you feel like, okay, I just want to make sure I hear my baby crying, you know, I want to wake up. A bassinet will be your go-to, because it's small enough for you to keep it on the side of your bed. Maybe have their own sleeping arrangements that's appropriate. But whatever you do, I don't care how tired you are, make sure that newborn baby, even your toddlers, because even up to the age 1, they still need to be sleeping in their own bed. You know, and even after that, they need to be sleeping in their own bed.
Because we've seen it a lot. And we have forms for parents to sign, because like, we can't go out and tell you not to sleep with your baby. That's your home. We cannot tell you what to do in your home, but we can recommend, hey, we don't think it's a good idea to co-sleep with your child because you could possibly roll over. I had a case where a dad was doing a skin to skin with his newborn, and he had hair on his chest, and the baby breathed in the air. The hair that he had on his chest, I guess it was loose, and it clogged up the baby, and the baby couldn't breathe, and the baby passed away. So that's why we don't recommend it, but we can't tell you what to do in your home. So just be mindful when you are co-sleeping with your children. Like Shaquana said, get a bassinet, put it next to your bed. They even make the bassinets that you could lay inside your bed next to you, so you could watch your baby and things like that, because that's something we recommend. Do not co-sleep with your baby at all.
Yes, you guys, please don't do it, you know. And I know and something else I want to bring up too, because Keandra touched on it when she talked a little bit about the physical abuse. But something that I want to share with you guys is, because I hear this a lot, and people say it not only at work, but I hear outside of work. My parents did it and it worked for me. Well, my parents did it and I turned out fine. So it happened to me, so my child will turn out fine. But here's the thing with that. just because your parents did something, it don't mean that they were doing the right thing. And that's why, as a parent, you have to assess everything that you do, and you assess it based upon your parenting ability. So just because mama used to take a switch off the tree and beat you butt naked, don't mean that that's something that you have to do to your children. So, like she said, I mean, capital punishment. So you can physically discipline your children as long as you don't leave any marks or bruises or any marks that will be lasting. And something that's real funny is, because we be laughing about this, because we be laughing about our little child abuse war room. So we got them all over our body, and that's child abuse.
It's funny that you say that, because I actually had a case like that where a 15-year-old had like scars. Basically, the abuse happened years ago. And she said that her mom used to beat her with a jump rope, and you could actually see the rope marks on her arm. But when I tell you they were healed, they were like scarred. Like she would have to use like cocoa butter every day to get rid of it. That mom still got arrested. Like they still arrested that mom because that's child abuse. So you just got to be mindful. Like I understand sometimes your kids can be out of control. Their behaviors are out of control, but you have to learn to control your impulsive issues. So you have to try different methods. Sometimes that physical punishment is not going to work. You have to use it. Take away electronics, take away extracurricular activities. Hey, if you don't do this, you're not playing in no game on Friday. You have to take away things that they love. Social media, take their phone, especially for the teenagers. It may not work initially, but they'll get a better understanding. Because sometimes that physical abuse it doesn't work, and you can't get arrested for it because it is a crime. It's a child abuse charge. So, and it's hard to get off of that. So just be mindful. Like you could beat your kids. I'm not saying you can't. I tell people that all the time. You could physically discipline your children. However, you cannot leave a mark or a bruise that's going to last the next day within 24 hours, because you could possibly get arrested for it.
And what you were just saying leads to my next question, like what can parents do to prevent child abuse? As you mentioned, there are things you can do. You can take away their electronics, take away their privileges. These children, they don't really like to go outside anyway. Everything for them is all online, social media, electronic, TikTok, all that stuff. So there are so many creative ways that you can punish your children. And I don't even want to use that word. I'll take that back. There are so many ways that you can correct your children's behavior without physically hitting them. Like I said, we think about what our parents did, and we like, oh, well, my mama beat me with a belt, she beat me with a switcher, and all this other stuff. But that doesn't mean that's something you have to do with your children. We're getting smarter, evolution. We're evolving. So the children that your parents were not the children we were, and our children are not, who we was, so they're getting smarter, they're learning. So you can talk to your children the same way we're having this podcast right now. And that's something I try to tell parents to do all the time. Talk to your children, because we're so used to talking at our children and talking down to our children. And we forget that they just as smart as us. Some of them smarter than us.
Correct. Yeah, and that's a thing too, because that's another form of abuse too, and a lot of parents don't know that. That's mental injury. So when you talk down on your kids, they go and tell everybody, "Oh, my mom said this about me, my dad said this about me." That's a form of mental injury. So you have to be mindful of things like that. But just like Shaquana said, talk to your kids. Get familiar with your kids' behaviors. If it changes, something is going on. Especially in reference to sexual abuse. I cannot stress this enough. Talk to your children. I don't care what age. Make them aware of their private areas. Let them know there's no good touch. A lot of people think it's a good touch. There's no good touch when it comes to children. You have to understand, when people say, oh, good touch, bad touch, a good touch is a good touch. If you know what I mean, if somebody's touching you and making you feel good, that's considered a good touch. So therefore, do not use that terminology. Do not use that verbiage when you're trying to teach your kids about their private areas. Just tell them nobody should touch you there. There's no such thing as a good touch when it comes to children. So a lot of people and kids think it's okay. That's the part of the grooming, because they know that person and things like that. So you have to make them aware, like sit down, let them know, like, hey, familiar with, I do it with my nieces all the time. Anybody ever touch you? What you gonna do if somebody touch you? They need to know what needs to happen next. Let them know. They need to call police. They need to tell the teacher. They need to tell an adult or what's going on. So just keep that in mind. That's the best way to prevent it. Just talk to your kids. Just talk to them, make them aware. Even if you have to physically discipline them, Sit them down afterwards and hey, you know why I did that? It's not okay what you did. Your behavior was out of control, this and this and that. So that's the biggest thing I could say in reference to preventing child abuse is to talk to your children, not at them like Shaquana said. Sit down, get to know them, see what's going on. Because a lot of kids, they're stressed. They go to school, they get bullied, they get talked about. We see it all the time. The new thing now is the kids, especially the teenagers, they're sending nudes to each other in the school. It's getting around the whole school. They get on social media, the little Snapchats. They do all that. So once you see that change in your child's behavior, that's that time for you to, hey, what's going on? Talk to me. What's like, let me help you. And then, like I said, a lot of people think that we just go in and take children and do things like that. We have resources to help you guys be better parents. We're never coming in a home to say, we don't point fingers. We don't say that you're a bad parent. We try to get involved to help you become a better parent. So we have resources for that. We have counseling, we have behavior therapists, we have targeted case managers. We have a lot of providers to help you with anything that you need in your home to help you take care of you and your children, to basically protect you and your children. So don't just automatically think, because a lot of people always have that negative narrative in reference to DCF, and that's not what it is. And somebody, if you ever run into somebody who's dealt with DCF and their kids have got taken away, ask them, what did you do to have your kids taken away? Because that's something we don't do. We just don't go in everybody's house and as soon as we get a report and we take kids. That's not how this goes. Because you know how many kids will be having care?
Right.
A whole bunch. So just be mindful. We try to help families, and taking somebody's child is the last resort. That means we tried every step, everything to help this family, and they just didn't want any help. And that's why that kid was removed. However, like I said, we have providers to help stop all of that stuff. So it's on, and then they have community based care centers to where they do community referrals. You don't even have to have an abuse report to get that help. You can always reach out to your DCF office and they could provide you with that information to get those counseling referrals. And some of the times we pay for that. Sometimes we pay for daycares, especially when it comes to inadequate supervision. We pay daycare up to 2 months. So you have to understand, like, we have things in place to help prevent things happening to children. But you have to, as a parent, you have to take the initiative to basically want to help and protect your own child. You can't be in your house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Exactly. Exactly. So for my last question, and you kind of touched on mental abuse. So this will kind of be good because how does child abuse affect the child? And you touched on mental abuse, you guys. There is a such thing as mental abuse, child abuse. And these are the things where also can be what we call traditional mothers calling their daughters bitches and hoes, telling their sons they ain't shit because they daddy ain't shit. That's mental abuse, okay? And I wanted to say that because I'm pretty sure you all know somebody that talks to their children like that, and people laugh and they think it's okay because it's something that happened in their family or whatever the case may be. But listen, if your mama did it to you, she was dead ass wrong. And if you're doing it to your children, you dead ass wrong too. I don't mean to say it like that, but I mean it. Because at the end of the day, it's like the wisdom has to set in. You know, like I said, I go back to just because your mom did it, it doesn't mean your mom was doing the right thing. So just because your mom talked down on you and called you everything outside of your name, that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing to your children. So that's mental abuse. And we do get these type of cases because, and this is just the time to the last question, because parents talk to their children like that. This is a child that looks up to you for approval. And you're disapproving them every time you tell them that there's something outside of who they are. So it causes, psychological harm to the child, and that's how they end up cutting themselves. We get suicidal children that want to hurt their parents. So these are all the things that kind of just, stem from mental abuse because of the parent started in the home, and then it trickles down to the child, and then the child begins to, abuse their parents or their siblings or whatever the case may be. So just tell us something simple, like what have you seen these type of cases? How do they affect the children and their siblings in the home as well?
As far as mental injury goes, it affects them a lot. the most we get the parents that talk down on the kids. We get that not so often, but the cases that we do get in reference to mental injury is always the parents that's going through a divorce or a really, really, really bad breakup. And they talk bad about the other parent to the child, and they got to go to their dad's house and hear the dad talk bad about the mama. They go back home to the mama, now the mama dogging the daddy out, and now they feel like it's their fault. Then they want to commit suicide. They start cutting themselves. We recently had a child who tried to overdose on pills. So things like that comes into play. So you have to be mindful of how you do talk to your children. I know it may seem tedious, like Shaquana said, like we grew up, these new generation kids, they're different. They're not built like us. I'm not sure why, but they're different. They're more sensitive. So when you like call your child out their name or even like breaking up and things like that, you have to make sure that that child is mentally stable to handle that, because they tend to blame themselves for that. Yeah. That's like a really, really, especially in the teenagers. The younger kids, they don't really know what's going on. They just think, okay, I'm going to my mom's house and my dad's house. But when the teenagers, they're older, they could think it, they could think through it, they could see the things. They're like Shaquana said, they're not dumb. Mm-hmm. And then when they go to school and talk about it and they see that it's not normal, then it becomes an issue. And that's when the suicidal ideation come into place, and they don't want to be in the home. They want to kill themselves. And that's when we have to get involved and put counseling in place like that. So mental injury is a big part of abuse. It's very rare that we get cases, but the cases we do get is more so into that custody thing, to the parents going back and forth, and like I said, talking about each other at one house. They got to go to this house and talk about this, and it affects all the kids in the home, not just one. Because you have to understand, if there's an older child and they're going through something, the siblings are looking up to that older child. So that's a learned behavior. They're gonna repeat everything the older child is doing. So you got to try to nip that in the bud with the oldest child, because I'm an older sibling. I know they're going to look up to me and things like that. So you have to nip that in the bud. Other than that, like I said, mental injury is very rare, and it's hard to actually prove, because we actually have to send the kids to CPT, the child protection team. So I'm pretty sure Shaquana can elaborate on that. But if that child is getting Baker Act like numerous of times, then it's going to be a concern, because something is going on in their home. So that's why I told you the best way to prevent that, talk to your children. If you see a change in behavior, I don't care what it is, talk to your children. If it's a different way how they talk to you, their demeanor, if they're regressing in anything, their grades are dropping, anything, talk to them. Ask them what's going on. Build that relationship with your child so they can come to you in case something is going on. So that's a big part too. You have to build that relationship with them. You have to. There's no way around that.
Yeah, I agree. You have to keep an open line of communication with your children, and you have to keep them educated. Give them the knowledge that they need so they can survive. Because something that I noticed too that we do as parents, we always try to categorize our children. We're like, oh, they just kids. They don't know. I tell them when they get older and all this other stuff. But it's so important that you don't underestimate them, because children are really smart.
And they go to school and they talk to other kids that's more advanced than them, and they get information, and it could be the wrong information. So you really need to talk to your children. Yes,
exactly. And then these children, they soak up so much and they repeat things. So you got children from other homes telling your children things, you have what your children are seeing in your home, what you're telling them. So just make sure you're talking to your children, make sure you educate them. Something really big, and Keandra touched on it, about their body parts and telling them the real names. Because if your son can say Roblox, and he can say, Minecraft and all that
Pokemon,
stuff,
yes, he could. Yes.
And he can know that somebody is not supposed to touch it. And the same thing with your little girls. We get them little nicknames, pocketbook, candy, all this other stuff, but teach them the real names. It's a vagina, these are breasts, this is a bottom, just so they can know if somebody ever was to violate them in any of those places, they can say, so-and-so touched me on my breast, And also, if you can educate them on, this is something really big for me too, because when it comes to sexual abuse, people get creative. Anybody that perpetrate on children, they're very creative, because they have to get ways for children to trust them. So you got to think about somebody And we don't have the mind to think like them, but when it comes to somebody that does things like this, you have to think of what they would try to do. Like, what do children like? So this is why it's important that you teach them the real names and you teach them what is on top, what is inside, what is underneath, because people, like I say, people who perpetrate on children, they get really creative. So instead of them telling a child that they're having sex, they may tell them that they're playing or they're exercising. Matter of fact, and this is a good one because
or wrestling.
this reminds me of a Law and Order SVU episode. And I'll never forget because it just reminds me of how, like I say, how creative perpetrators get when it comes to children. But it was a little girl in that episode, and it was her bus driver, and the bus driver was telling her that they were exercising. So she went home and she told her mom, she's like, "Oh yeah, we exercise every day, me and the bus driver." She's a child. So think of it like this. If you have not educated your child about what sex is, what's a penis, what's a vagina, somebody can come and tell them that they're exercising and they think that they're exercising.
Yep.
And me and Keandra cannot elaborate on the type of cases that we get, but this is how creative perpetrators are when it comes to children. They could even tell your child, "Oh, we playing a video game."
Yep.
I'm Mario, you Luigi, and let's come do this. So that's why it's important. Like I say, please, please, please educate your children about their private parts. Tell them what they are. Make sure they know nobody's supposed to see them, touch them. It doesn't matter who they are. And if somebody does touch them, they need to come and tell you, even if it is grandma, even if it is granddaddy. Today, grandma touched my breast when she took me a bath. Okay, that's it. You was in the bathroom. This is something that you want to get familiar with, talking to your children about and asking them these type of questions, because I cannot elaborate more about children are abused by people they know.
That's statistically, they are, all of them are abused by someone they know, because that person has the time to groom them and they're comfortable. They trust them. Hey, yeah, you my cousin. I see you at the cookout,
Right.
And they'll say, yeah, I know your mama, this and this and that. So they're going to start the grooming stages and things like that. I always say, tell moms, if you had that gut feeling about that shady person in your family, go with that gut feeling. And I think every female knows what that gut feeling is, because you get that uncomfortable, uneasy feeling like, nah, not him. So if you're having that for family members, don't ignore it. Because 9 times out of 10, it's the right feeling. And a lot of people like to brush that stuff under the rug because it's family members and say something, because you don't know how many other kids that person has done abused or touched or whatever they do. So just be mindful, like Shaquana said, just talk to your children. Let them know the real parts. Let them know, and I can't stress this enough, there's no good touch. Do not tell them good touch, bad touch. Do not. That's it's no good touch. I can't stress that enough. There's no good touch. So
yeah, she's right. I'll be elaborating more on the next episode, because the next episode will be with another person in this field, and we'll be talking about sexual abuse, and we'll be talking about child on child, and we'll be hitting on little things that you can ask your children, because like she said, I'm at the child protection team, so I'm a certified forensic interviewer. So there are ways that you can talk to your children, questions that you can ask them to get them to tell you what you need to know without you
coming straight out and say, somebody touch you. Somebody, yes, you can always talk to
like she said, since it happens from people that they know, people that they trust, they may not be as forthcoming to tell you, that daddy touched me, or my brother made me suck his pee-pee, or whatever the case may be. So that's why you just have to know what type of questions to ask your children for them to feel comfortable with coming out and telling you, what happened. So, Keandra, I thank you for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
Tell everybody where they can find you and what else you have going on.
I only have Twitter. You guys can follow me at SassyRed23. But I am part-time. Outside of child welfare, I do bail bondsman. So I am a full-time bail bondsman. So if you know anybody who's in jail who want to get bonded out, let me know. Give me a call. I don't know if Shaquana gonna put my card up, but I have a business card. You guys give me a call. I'm located in the Central Florida area, the Orlando area, and I could do all the outside counties and things like that. So if you know anybody that's in jail, just let me know. Have your money ready, and we can move forward from there. But yeah, I only have Twitter. I don't have any other handles. I don't have an IG. I don't have a Facebook or anything like that because of my job. So I don't have any of that type of stuff.
Which is correct, you know, but unfortunately, I'm a little more bolder on both sides.
Yeah. So I can't share. I can't have no social media at all. So, but yeah, the only thing I do have is Twitter. But you guys can call me in reference to bonding somebody out. I am a full-time bail bondsman. So.
And like she said, I'll list everything below, and on the YouTube channel, I'll have it below in the comment section so you guys can go and check her out. You know, so if you ever get jammed up when you're in Orlando area, make sure you holler at the girl.
Even if you're down south, because I know people, I could do a transfer bond. I could help you out if you're like in Miami or if you're in the Tallahassee area. I have mentors who are bail bondsmen, and I know them. So therefore, if you need something, just let me know. I could hook it up. I could do a transfer bond for you. So it's not a big deal.
Okay. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you everyone for tuning in at Bay Talks Podcast. And remember to download the podcast. It's available on all podcast platforms, you guys. So make sure you follow, share, and like and comment. Again, thank you guys and good night.
Bye.